I'm Alex Michaelson. This week, the issue is monkeypox. President Biden, Governor Newsom, and many local governments have all declared emergency situations. How can you protect yourself? California state epidemiologist Dr. Erica Pan will join us with the state's plan. When will more vaccines be available? Why is the gay community being hit so hard? Then, Democratic strategist Lis Smith is here to discuss her new best-selling book and what it's really like working for Pete Buttigieg, Barack Obama, Bill de Blasio, and so many more. Finally, a special tribute to Vin Scully. Some help from Bob Costas and Joe Davis, as The Issue Is starts right now.
Broadcasting across California, you're watching The Issue Is.
And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Alex Michaelson. This week we want to answer some of the questions you may have regarding monkeypox. President Biden officially declared monkeypox a health emergency. Governor Newsom declared a state of emergency in California, and lots of local jurisdictions, including LA County, have done the same. So what is it? How do you protect yourself? Joining us live is the state's top expert on this issue. Dr. Erica Pan is California's official state epidemiologist. Dr. Pan, welcome to The Issue Is, and congratulations on the color coordination of the glasses and the outfit. That is impressive.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me today.
All right. Obviously, this is an important, serious topic. Let's start with the most basic sort of monkeypox for dummies here. What is monkeypox, and how do you get it?
Sure. Monkeypox is a previously rare disease. It's caused by an infection with a virus that is related to the smallpox virus, but much less severe, much less contagious. And it's primarily spread through close, very personal skin-to-skin contact with people who have monkeypox. Typically, people get a flu-like syndrome and then have a rash or sores that look like little blisters. And it can be spread from person to person or animals, or also from materials that are contaminated, like clothing or bedding.
So it's not necessarily a sexually transmitted disease, right? We know that it's not a gay disease. You don't have to be gay to get it, but it is spreading big time in the gay community. Almost everybody who is getting it is gay. Why is that?
It's not a sexually transmitted disease per se, but obviously when you have close, intimate contact, you're having skin-to-skin contact, and that again is how this disease is spread. So it seems to have hit this particular community and this network hard in the last several months. So
when you say skin-to-skin, does that mean like you hug somebody and you can get it? You pat them on the back? Like, what does that mean?
It really is, again, if you have like a blister or one of these lesions, this rash, and that is rubbing on someone else, that is how you can get infected. So skin to skin would really mean that. Although, again, if you share clothing and someone has clothing that's contaminated, but that would really be prolonged, or, really wearing someone else's clothing. So it's really, again, about having contact with these infected lesions is the primary way we think this is spread.
So Governor Newsom recently declared a state of emergency to fight this. That term freaks a lot of people out after more than 2 years of a COVID state of emergency that some people feel like should be over already. What does that declaration actually do? State of emergency, what does that mean?
Yeah, great question. It really helps us mobilize resources, and hopefully with the federal declaration, we're really hoping for more funding as well. We can really leverage resources. We're hoping that this will help get more vaccines, more treatment to our community.
So on the issue of vaccinations, which is one of the reasons the state of emergency was declared, where are we at on that? Because we know right now only people that are high risk can get the vaccine. When does that change? When can everybody get the vaccine?
Yeah, the vaccine supply is extremely limited still. To give you an example, so far here in California, we've received just over 109,000 doses. And we do anticipate a little bit more in mid-August, but our understanding is that there is, at least for the next few weeks or so, only about a little over 1 million doses for the whole country, right? We're a state of 40 million people. We did send a letter to our federal partners recently saying, actually, what we think we need in California to get to our highest risk population is probably more like 800,000 doses. And again, we've gotten like 1/8 of that. So it's extremely limited right now. There was a declaration yesterday also, part of that federal declaration is there might be another way to to use these doses more in a different way to kind of stretch them out so that you could get 5 doses for every 1 vial. So that is something it sounds like the federal government is exploring, and hope that that will really stretch our vaccine supply much more.
In terms of a timetable, when are we looking at when there would be more vaccines? What's the timetable like?
Yeah, my sense is that is a moving target. We heard we'll get a little bit more, but not a whole lot more in a couple weeks, and that there's, another 3rd phase maybe coming in September, and then maybe some other larger phases not until this winter. But I think this continues to evolve, and we're hoping that we will get more sooner.
If you've gotten the vaccine and you haven't been exposed yet, does it then prevent you from getting monkeypox?
We think it should, and again, there's a lot of sort of early data, and I think that's what we're managing. We're less sure about how well it will prevent the less serious infection, but we have more confidence as it will prevent hospitalizations and illness and some of those more serious outcomes that can happen with monkeypox.
All right, so we're now having this, of course, after we've had 2 years of this pandemic, which you've been working nonstop for. What is the most important lesson that we learned from COVID that is now being applied to monkeypox and the response?
Most importantly, we know we need to work closely with our local and regional partners, trusted community partners, to really get the right messages and information and resources to the people that need them the most.
Well, there's so much sort of misinformation and confusion on this right now, and I hope that this segment helped clear up some of that. I found it very valuable. Thank you, Dr. Pan. I know you're so busy right now. We really appreciate you taking some time to talk with everybody.
Well, thank you for helping to get good information out there.
Up next, she is the communications whiz that made Pete Buttigieg a national figure. Now Lis Smith is out with a juicy new book. She's here in studio when we come back. And we encourage you to head to youtube.com/Elex Michaelson right now to watch our interview with California Senator Alex Padilla about the Inflation Relief Act. Stay with us. How does a millennial mayor, openly gay man, win the presidency?
Well, the path is narrow, but I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't see a path. And what we found is when we get in front of people, they respond.
That was the first time we talked to then Mayor Pete Buttigieg on The Issue Is back in March of 2019. He got in front of a whole lot of people, thanks largely to one person. Lis Smith was his top communications aide and designed a go-everywhere strategy that led to Pete becoming a national figure, now a member of the cabinet. And it led to Lis becoming one of the most talked about strategists in the Democratic Party. She writes about that and a whole lot more in her juicy new book, Any Given Tuesday, A Political Love Story. The book is out now. It's already a New York Times bestseller. Lis Smith, welcome to The Issue Is for the very first time. Congratulations on the book, and great to have you in our house.
Yes, thank you for having me. As you know, I am a big fan of your show and made sure to get Pete on here every opportunity we could during the 2020 campaign.
Yeah, he was here a lot, more than any other candidate. We'll talk about that in a moment. I just want to say congratulations on the book. It's really, really great.
Thank you.
And like you, it is honest, it is brash, it is blunt, and it's a little sassy. So there's definitely some tea spilled all over the pages,
yes,
which is what makes it fun to read. But you learn a lot about it as well. Some people you write some not so great things about. One person you write a lot of great things about is Pete.
Yeah.
And you talk about him as the one.
Yes.
And I kept thinking about this scene from The West Wing, which is one of my favorite shows, one of Pete's favorite shows. This was when Sam Seaborn, played by Rob Lowe, was talked to by Josh Lyman, played by Bradley Whitford, about checking out a potential presidential candidate. Check this out.
If I see the real thing in Nashville, should I tell you about it?
You won't have to.
Why?
You got a pretty bad poker face.
Yeah.
Sam, please keep your seat. Sam, where are you going?
New Hampshire.
I mean, not quite that over-the-top Aaron Sorkin-y, but talk about sort of your moment when you knew that Pete was the one.
Yeah, I probably maybe had a little bit of that look on my face when I first met him. I first sat down with him when he was running for DNC chair in
Democratic National Committee.
Yes, in January of 2017. I'd done phone calls with him in December of 2016. And that was a time when Democrats were thought that to beat Trump, they had to beat Trump. that they had to get down in the mud with him, and everyone was sort of yelling and screaming on cable news and seeing who could be the most offensive and loud. Pete had a very different strategy from the beginning. And his whole strategy was rooted in talking about his values, like freedom and fairness, but also in avoiding the demonization of other people. And his gamble was that voters would look for someone who was the complete opposite of Donald Trump. And so he radiated kindness, empathy. He was brilliant, spoke seven languages, and I just found him to be the most compelling communicator I'd ever encountered in the Democratic Party. And so that's why I did name my chapter about him The One.
Yeah, and then your strategy for him was this go everywhere strategy. You talked about it. He came on this show more than any other candidate, which we were appreciative of. And he went on a whole lot of other shows more than any other candidate as well. You were well known for that strategy. Does that strategy, that go everywhere strategy, work if you don't have a candidate who speaks 7 languages and is especially good at this stuff? Would you advise that to everyone to get out there more, or do you just have to be sort of a superhuman kind of person to pull that off?
No, I would not advise it for everyone. And I think sometimes people give me a little bit too much credit for this. Yes, it was my strategy, but it couldn't have happened without Pete. And Pete is a once-in-a-generation talented communicator, and he's the Democrats' most talented TV communicator, and that's why you see the administration using him so much.
But, what's also kind of interesting is that the administration itself has not adopted this strategy. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris barely do any interviews. You don't see them out there, even though they have some good things to talk about, especially recently. Do you think that the White House should adopt more of that strategy, that the president, vice president should be more out there talking to people in the press?
So my understanding is that after the president does bill signings next week, they just had a run of these legislative victories, that the vice president and the cabinet members are going to fan out across the country and be communicating aggressively on the accomplishments.
Is that an acknowledgement that maybe the strategy right now isn't quite working and they got to get out there more?
I think it never hurts to get out there more. And presidents do oftentimes rely on a rose garden strategy, but when Joe Biden is at his best is when he's actually with people, because he is a people person. He's a very warm and empathetic person. So I would love to see him out there more on the campaign trail and less behind a podium at the White House.
Let's talk a little bit more about the book. At one point, you sort of became part of the news, even though you're so used to being behind the scenes. This is when you're dating Eliot Spitzer, who at that point was no longer with his wife. It was a consensual relationship between the two of you. It got lots of attention, and the New York Post became a whole tabloid thing in New York. Obviously, he got caught up in a prostitution scandal, which ended his time as governor of New York. And you write about the fact that you were trying to do your own PR through a crisis.
Right.
And you learned you can't do that.
No, you can't. And one thing about this book is I'm very honest about other people and their shortcomings. That's even an understatement. So I thought it was really important to be honest about myself and my own shortcomings, because yes, I am known as this hardened PR pro, crisis professional. But when it came to handling my own crisis, I did a piss poor job of it. And what I realized is you can't handle your own PR. You are inherently conflicted. And that was a moment when I needed to take a step back and rely on other people to do it, and to, maybe for once realize that I alone couldn't fix it.
Which is, of course, a reference to President Trump, who said, I alone can fix it. At the time, you were working for Bill de Blasio,
yes,
who was going to become the next mayor of New York, and he fired you because of this scandal. Yeah. And you wrote about him in the book, and weren't a lot of kind words. Here's some of what you wrote about Bill de Blasio, who was at one point seeking Eliot Spitzer's endorsement. Quote, "The likely incoming mayor of New York was childish, intellectually lazy, overconfident in his own abilities, and annoyingly condescending. Both of us had tried to get in bed with Eliot, but only one of us had been successful." Ouch.
Well, you know what? The best advice I got when I was writing my book was to be honest, and everything I said there was 100% truthful.
Yeah, you know, you write about so many politicians, not only Pete, not only de Blasio. I wish I had 2 hours to get into all of it. That's why you got to buy the book. But we do something called the name game on our show. This is a sort of quick way to get through a lot of the different candidates. These are all people that you've worked with before. The first word that comes to mind when you think of them. Okay, you ready? First one is Barack Obama.
Star.
Former Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill.
Brassy.
Former Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe.
Life of the party.
Former New Jersey Governor John Corzine.
Very intelligent.
Former North Carolina Senator and VP candidate John Edwards.
Massive disappointment.
Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Tragic.
And finally, former New York Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Childish, intellectually lazy, overconfident in his abilities.
There we go. All right. Up next, could Gavin Newsom be president someday? We'll talk about his political future, what he's doing right now, the future of Dems in the midterms. Lis Smith has some advice for Democrats. Stay with us. More with Lis Smith when we come back here on The Issue Is.
I've tried to say no, no way, in every way I possibly can, including...
That was Governor Newsom with us here on The Issue Is at the White House, denying that he wants to run for president, but he continues to campaign against the actions of other red states' governors, leading to lots of speculation about a potential presidential run. We're back with Democratic strategist Lis Smith, author of Any Given Tuesday, a great political book. Liz, what do you make of Governor Newsom's moves here? Does this make sense in terms of a political strategy?
Yeah, I think so. As a Democrat, I would personally like to see more governors out there on the national stage and accomplished governors like Gavin Newsom. So I think he's got a great message, and he's a great voice to counteract the extremism that we're seeing from Republican governors. And I know he's got that big war chest, and I would just hope that maybe he uses it to help elect Dems in some of these battleground states.
Let's talk about the Democrats' strategy going forward right now, because we've got this midterm election coming up, right? The last few weeks have actually been a lot of good news for Democrats. The assumption all year has been the Democrats are going to get blown out in November.
Right.
How do you counteract that? What's your advice to the party? What should the message be for the next few months?
Yeah, so the landscape has shifted significantly over the last couple months, and I would attribute that mostly to the Dobbs decision.
And the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade.
Right. The most important thing, though, for Democrats to do is not let this be a referendum on Joe Biden. With all of his accomplishments, the American people are still feeling pain from inflation and gas prices. And what we need to do is make this a choice. And it's a choice between Democrats who are trying to give them relief and Republicans who vote against important measure after important measure, whether it's reducing drug prices, capping the price of insulin, stopping oil companies from price gouging, you name it. And why are they doing that? These are not exactly radical socialist things. The only reason why Republicans are doing that is because they want to impose as much misery on the American people so that the American people take it out on the party in power in November. And I think it is a very cynical, dark ploy that Democrats need to be screaming from the rooftops about.
All right, we like to play a game on this show called Personal Issues to get to know you a little bit better. Your book,
I got a lot of personal issues.
Apparently. If you read the book, you get to read many of them. But since I'm not doing Liz's therapy session, we're just going to focus on your favorites to get to know you a little bit better. We put 30 seconds on the clock. This is the first thing that comes to mind.
How did Pete do? How did Pete do? I want to beat him.
Pete was really good. I don't know how quite you beat him. I guess it would be getting more in. So let's
do it.
Let's try to do this. Okay, here we go. Ready? What is your favorite TV show?
Game of Thrones.
Favorite book?
End of the Affair by Graham Greene.
What is your favorite musician or band?
Guns N' Roses.
What is your favorite place to relax?
My apartment.
Who is your role model?
Stephanie Cutter.
What is your favorite sports team?
Bengals. Houday. Representing them with my bracelet today.
There they are. We saw you last year, or earlier this year, at the Super Bowl. There you are with Cincinnati Mayor Aftab Purval, who you were helping out during that week. Lots of great swag there. What is your prediction for the Bengals this season?
Well, they're gonna go all the way, and I think that they win the Super Bowl by 3. With a walk-off win delivered by their ice-cold kicker, Evan McPherson.
You're giving love to the kicker, not to Joe Burrows.
No, you know what? Evan delivered a lot of those playoff wins, so it's all in his hands, or I guess all in his feet this year. Yeah.
Well, we love the Bengals, but a reminder of who actually won the Super Bowl last year, of course, is the Los Angeles Rams. So we love to play music on the show. We're going to go out with I Love L.A., a reminder of the actual Super Bowl champion, the Los Angeles Rams, hoping to repeat this year. We'll see what happens this year. But much like Liz, the Bengals are scrappy and young and fun and exciting. Kind of like any given Tuesday.
And talented and brilliant.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Great to see you, Liz. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
Go buy it. We'll be back with the tribute to Vin Scully when we come back. What did you learn from Vin?
Well, I think I learned from Vin what Vin learned from Red Barber: preparation.
I think the big thing that he taught me was to be myself. It's the same advice that Red Barber gave him when he started in 1950. Be yourself. Let yourself come through.
That was Bob Costas and Joe Davis reflecting on one of their mentors, Vin Scully, during recent interviews here on The Issue Is. Vin broadcast Dodger games for 67 years. I had the pleasure of meeting him a few times, and he was the classiest, kindest, warmest, and funniest, perhaps the greatest storyteller in broadcasting history. Sometimes you should meet your heroes. We end this week with Vin's final words from his last game broadcasting for the Dodgers back in 2016. Rest in peace to the greatest of all time.
I know in my heart that I've always needed you more than you've ever needed me. And I'll miss our time together more than I can say. But you know what? There will be a new day and eventually a new year. And when the upcoming winter gives way to spring, rest assured, once again, it will be time for Dodger baseball. So this is Vin Scully wishing you a very pleasant good afternoon wherever you may be.